3 months after my dad died, my husband handed me divorce papers right after transferring half my inheritance to his name. I remember standing in our kitchen, barefoot, holding a cold cup of coffee in one hand and a letter from the probate lawyer in the other. That day was supposed to be the turning point for our future. At least that's what I thought. My father had just left me over $850,000 in inheritance, including a small lakeside cabin upstate. But my husband, Ryan, had other plans. Ryan and I had been married for 6 years. He wasn't perfect, but I thought I knew who he was. Funny how money peels away people's masks. The morning the lawyer called to confirm the transfer, Ryan was unusually affectionate. He made breakfast. He actually asked about my day. Red flags. Looking back, that same afternoon, I got a notification from my bank that a joint transfer authorization had been used on one of the accounts, the one where the inheritance had landed. And guess what? Half of it was gone. Transferred to a holding account with his name on it. I froze. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I called my dad's lawyer and asked if anyone else could have signed a release form. The answer, no, only you and someone with power of attorney. But I never gave Ryan that, ever. So how did he do it? That night, I smiled through dinner. Ryan told me he was looking into investing some of our money. I said nothing. Even kissed him goodnight. Then, I got to work. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there next to Ryan, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every little sign I'd ignored. The business trips that didn't make sense. The sudden interest in managing our finances. The time he asked for my signature on a document from the mortgage company. And I stupidly signed without reading. I was a fool, but I wasn't going to stay one. The next morning, I dropped him off at work like usual, smiled, even laughed at one of his dumb jokes. Then I drove straight to the office of Claire Hastings, the same attorney who handled my dad's estate. I told her everything, showed her the bank transfer, the forged signature, and every text Ryan had sent about joint plans for our future. She stared at me for a moment and said, "This isn't financial misbehavior. This is fraud." That word hit like a slap. Claire pulled out her phone and called a forensic document examiner right in front of me. Within 48 hours, he confirmed what we already knew. The signature on the transfer authorization wasn't mine. It was an imitation. A damn good one, but not perfect. Claire leaned in, her voice low. "If you want to fight this, we have a case. A strong one. But we need to move fast and quietly." I nodded. I wanted my money back. But more than that, I wanted Ryan to understand exactly who he'd underestimated. For the next 2 weeks, I played the part. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I even wore that stupid blue dress he liked. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Claire and her team were building an airtight legal trap. She pulled financial records, subpoenaed bank footage, and even hired a private investigator to look into Ryan's other activities. What we found, Ryan wasn't just a thief. He was an amateur conman. There were hidden accounts, credit cards I didn't know existed, a separate phone line under a fake name, and emails between him and some woman named Talia, discussing how they'd start fresh once the inheritance was fully transferred. Talia even wrote, "She'll never see it coming. Just keep pretending a little longer." Yeah, let that sink in. So. I did exactly that. Pretended. Ryan had no idea that while he was sending love notes to his side chick, I was printing them out and handing them over to a legal team with teeth sharper than his lies. The first domino fell the day Claire filed an emergency motion to freeze all of our joint accounts. Ryan didn't notice at first, but 3 days later, while trying to pay for a business dinner, his card got declined. He came home fuming. "Something's wrong with the bank," he said. "I'm calling tomorrow." I shrugged. Must be a glitch. The next day, Claire served him with a cease and desist, a financial fraud complaint, and a court summons, all before noon. I wish I could have seen his face when he opened that envelope that evening. He came home early, pale, sweating. He tried to play it cool. "So, something came in the mail. From a lawyer." I raised my eyebrows. "Really? What about?" He chuckled nervously. "Just some misunderstanding. Probably about that weird transfer. It's no big deal. No big deal." I wanted to scream. Instead, I poured us both a glass of wine, clinked his, and said, "Well, let's get through it together, like always." He smiled, and I smiled back, already planning my next move. Ryan didn't sleep much that night. I could tell. He kept tossing, getting up, pacing around the kitchen like a rat in a trap, and that's exactly what he was. By Friday, Claire had enough evidence to file a civil suit and press criminal charges. She told me we had a solid case for embezzlement, forgery, and even wire fraud. If the DA picked it up, Ryan could be looking at jail time, but prison wasn't even the part I wanted most. I wanted him publicly ruined. The man who tried to steal from his own wife. Oh, he wasn't walking away quietly. Meanwhile, Ryan kept trying to play it cool. He sent flowers to my office, booked a surprise weekend getaway, said we needed to reconnect. I smiled and said, I'd love that. What I didn't tell him was that the private investigator Mark was following him, documenting every move, and on that same day, Mark sent me something that made my blood boil. Photos of Ryan at a jewelry store, buying a ring. Not for me. The woman in the photos with him. Yup. Talia. She looked younger than me, maybe late 20s. Long blonde hair, expensive heels, and a face that had clearly learned how to weaponize a pout. Mark also pulled hotel records. Ryan had booked a room under an alias, James Ryan, subtle, but the best part, he used my credit card to do it. That was the moment I stopped being sad. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was focused, laser sharp. I gave Claire the green light. The lawsuit was filed that Monday morning. Claire made sure the court date was set as soon as possible. In the meantime, we sent formal notice to every bank and credit union we had accounts with, plus the 3 he didn't know I had in my name only. By Wednesday, Ryan's life started falling apart in real time. First, the financial firm he worked for found out about the investigation. Claire had anonymously tipped off their compliance officer, and guess what? Turns out, Ryan had listed my inheritance as part of his own assets on a company investment form. Total violation. He was suspended pending internal review. Then came the fun part. He tried to log into the investment app we shared. Locked. The brokerage had frozen the account. He called me in a panic. Babe, something's seriously wrong. Our accounts, everything's frozen. Did you do something? I looked him dead in the eye and said, why would I do anything? We're in this together. Remember. He just blinked. Speechless. Good. But then came the twist I wasn't expecting. The next evening, I came home to find Ryan sitting at the kitchen table, pale and sweaty again, but this time, not from guilt. I need to tell you something, he said. I sat across from him, arms crossed. He hesitated, then dropped the bomb. I took out a line of credit against the lake cabin, without telling you. My jaw clenched. That cabin was my father's pride and joy, the only place I'd ever seen him truly relaxed. We used to fish there, play cards, watch storms roll across the water in silence. He mortgaged it, behind my back. He looked ashamed, or at least pretended to. I needed cash. I thought it was temporary, just until the markets turned around. I was shaking, not with fear, but rage, quiet, burning rage, but I didn't explode. I just said, thank you for telling me. Then, I excused myself, walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and screamed into a towel. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was personal. He'd desecrated my dad's memory, violated the last piece of him I had left, and for what? Some desperate fling and a few stock picks. He wanted a war. He just got one. The next morning, I drove straight to the county clerk's office and pulled every document related to the lake cabin, and sure enough, there it was, a line of credit worth $65,000, opened under both our names with a forged co-signature. I texted Claire one word, confirmed. She responded within 5 minutes. Then, it's time for the gloves to come off. Claire filed a motion that afternoon to initiate criminal charges for mortgage fraud, and because the property had sentimental value, she added emotional damages to the civil suit. Every time Ryan had forged my name, he left a digital trail. We had dates, IP addresses, even timestamps. That evening, I walked into our bedroom to find Ryan packing. I need space, he said, like he was the victim. Sure, I replied calmly. Take all the space you need. And the moment he stepped out of the house, I changed the locks. 2 days later, I received a call from his sister, Angela. We'd always been close. She was crying. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. He told us you were taking all his money out of spite. I explained everything. The fake signatures, the stolen funds, the cheating, the mortgage fraud. Was silent for a long time. Then said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear, if Dad were still alive, he'd beat his ass himself. Apparently, Ryan had even borrowed money from his own family, claiming I was withholding funds from him. It was like peeling an onion of betrayal. Every layer smelled worse than the last. Court day came faster than I expected. Ryan showed up looking like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Unshaven, nervous. Talia was nowhere in sight. Claire was radiant, calm, precise. Claire, as we sat in front of the judge, Ryan's lawyer tried to spin some sob story about miscommunication and accidental signatures, but Claire wasn't having it. She presented the forensic evidence, the text messages, the bank records, the investigators' photos, even the credit line against the cabin. Then, she pulled out the last card, an audio recording. I had started recording conversations weeks before, and one particular night, Ryan had said, "Once the money's out, she can leave. I don't care, I'll be gone anyway." The courtroom was dead silent. The judge raised his eyebrows. Ryan's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Then the judge looked directly at Ryan and said, "This isn't just unethical, it's criminal, and frankly, it's disgusting." Judgment was swift. All funds were ordered to be interest. The cabin mortgage was nullified due to fraud. Ryan was personally liable for damages, and the judge referred the entire case to the district attorney. But my favorite moment, when Ryan stood there, mouth open, stuttering like a child who got caught stealing from the cookie jar. He turned to me as I walked past and mumbled, "You didn't have to do this." I stopped, looked him in the eye, and said, "You didn't have to betray me." But here we are, outside the courtroom. Reporters were already gathering. Claire leaned over and whispered, "Want to make a statement?" I shook my head. "Nah, I'll let the paperwork speak." But I did allow one picture. Me, standing on the steps of the courthouse, holding the judgment papers like a trophy. I sent a copy to Angela. She texted back, "Justice looks good on you." 3 days after the court ruling, Ryan made the evening news. Local anchor. Bright smile, cheerful, tone like she was announcing the weather. A local financial consultant has been charged with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement, involving his own wife's inheritance. And boom, his mugshot flashed across the screen. I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, watching the slow unraveling of the man who once said he'd take care of me forever. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I felt clean. The news picked up fast. Apparently, Ryan had more enemies than I knew. A former coworker spoke anonymously about shady behavior. Another woman came forward claiming he'd borrowed $10,000 and ghosted her. It was like a domino effect of karma. But then came the twist I didn't expect. Talia reached out to me. She emailed me through a burner Gmail. The subject line, "I didn't know." At first, I deleted it. But curiosity is a funny thing. The next day, I read it. She claimed Ryan told her I was controlling, mentally unstable, and spending all his inheritance. She said she believed him and she saw the news. If I'd known the truth, I never would have helped him. Helped. That word stuck with me. I forwarded the email to Claire, who immediately responded, "We may have just found another witness." Meanwhile, Ryan was spiraling. He'd lost his job. His accounts were frozen. His professional license was under review, and his so-called friends had gone quiet. Angela told me he was staying in a cheap motel on the edge of town, drowning in debt and paranoia. "He keeps thinking someone's following him," she said. "He asked if you hired more people." I hadn't, but the paranoia, that was just dessert. He texted me once, just once, "Please stop. I've lost everything." Didn't reply. Not out of coldness, but because I didn't start this. He did. Claire called me a week later with an update. The district attorney had officially filed charges. Ryan would be arraigned in 2 weeks. She also had news from the civil side. The media attention accelerated the case. We'll likely get a public judgment before the end of the month. And the damages might double. I should have felt relief. But part of me still felt unfinished. Not angry, not bitter, just a strange, quiet ache. Like, even after everything, there was a piece missing. That weekend, I drove up to the lake cabin alone. That was quiet, peaceful. The water still shimmered like silver. I poured myself some coffee, wrapped myself in Dad's old flannel, and just sat on the porch swing for hours. At some point, I opened my laptop. I started typing. I didn't know exactly what it was at first. Memoir, blog, maybe just a letter to myself, but the words poured out. He tried to erase me. Instead, I rewrote myself. 2 months later, that piece became an article, then a feature, Then, a book deal. I never planned on becoming a writer, but apparently, a woman exposing her husband's betrayal and turning it into a step-by-step guide to reclaiming her life is something publishers love, and the title, Signed, Stolen, and Served. Asterisk, the courthouse was buzzing that morning. Reporters, outside, camera flashes, people whispering. Ryan walked in, wearing a wrinkled suit and a look like he hadn't slept in a week. He avoided eye contact with me. Good. The arraignment lasted just 25 minutes. The charges: 3 counts of forgery, 2 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of mortgage fraud, 1 count of identity theft, and an obstruction charge for trying to cover his digital trail. When the judge read out the formal indictment, Ryan's lawyer asked for bail. The DA objected. Claire leaned in and whispered, "He's not going home today." She was right. The judge denied bail, citing risk of financial flight. I watched as the bailiff walked over and handcuffed Ryan. He didn't protest. He just looked down at the floor. As they let him out, he turned to me one last time and said, "Nothing. No apology. No plea. Just silence. It was perfect." The news broke within hours. Former financial advisor jailed without bail in inheritance fraud case involving his wife. This time, I did give a statement, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I stood on the same courthouse steps, looked straight into the cameras, and said, "This is not just my story. This is every woman's story who's been manipulated, gaslit, or robbed by someone they trusted. Speak up. Speak loud. The law can be on your side if you stop being afraid to fight." The clip went viral. Within 48 hours, I had over 100,000 new followers on the blog I started after the lake house trip. Women from everywhere: California, Ohio, even Ireland wrote in with their own stories. They weren't just reading, they were rising. And then came the book, Signed, Stolen, and Served. A Wife's Guide to Fighting Back dropped 3 months later. The first print run sold out in 5 days. I was on a podcast tour within 2 weeks, a morning show spot, an interview with a big-name host who asked, "What would you say to Ryan today?" I smiled and said, "I wouldn't waste the breath." Then, something weird happened. Talia reappeared again, this time, not through email. She showed up to one of my public signings. I recognized her instantly. She waited until the end of the line. When it was her turn, she didn't speak, just handed me a small envelope. Inside, a check, $7,500, with a note that said, "I took a loan from him. I didn't know it was your money. I never cashed it. Here it is." I looked up, she just nodded and walked away. That was the first and last time I saw her. Closure is strange, like that. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it's just a quiet moment, and a check you didn't expect. Back at the lake house, I framed that note, not because I forgave her, but because it reminded me, even the worst stories can leave behind something worth keeping. It was a gray morning the day Ryan was sentenced. The courtroom was quieter than before. No reporters this time, no cameras, just the smell of old wood, legal documents, and consequence. Ryan sat at the defense table, eyes sunken, hands cuffed. He looked small, like the man I once married had been stripped down to a sad, broken shell. He pleaded guilty to 5 charges as part of a deal. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he stood shook and said, "I made mistakes. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I loved my wife, in my own way." His voice cracked. I didn't flinch, because even now, at the edge of ruin, he was still lying, still painting himself as a man who lost control, not one who planned every move. The judge wasn't moved. He sentenced Ryan to 6 years in prison, with eligibility for parole He was also ordered to pay restitution over $450,000, including interest, damages, and legal fees. As the bailiff escorted him out, Ryan didn't look back. I didn't cry, not on the drive home, not when I walked into the now peaceful house, not even when I passed the wedding photo I hadn't taken down yet. I just felt still, like a chapter had closed so tightly, it locked itself shut. Weeks later, the book hit the bestseller list. People started calling me the woman who bankrupted, the fraud. I hated the nickname, but I understood it. It wasn't just about Ryan anymore. It was about what I represented. I started getting emails from women trapped in financial abuse, emotional manipulation, secret debts. I tried to respond to every one. One woman wrote, "You didn't just win, you taught me I could, too." That one stayed with me, Life didn't become a movie montage after that. I didn't suddenly meet someone new, fall in love, or ride off into the sunset. But I did something better. I healed. I sold the house Ryan and I had shared, donated half the profits to a women's legal defense fund, moved into a small home near the lake cabin, planted a garden, started therapy. I still wrote, still spoke, still taught women how to protect what's theirs emotionally, legally, financially. One evening, I took Dad's old boat out onto the lake. Just me, the water, and a sky painted in orange and violet, and I thought about how far I'd come, not from love, not from grief, but from erasure. I had been written out of my own life. Now, I write the story. And this chapter, it's all mine. 3 years later, I barely recognized the woman I used to be, the one who flinched when the bank called, the one who second-guessed her own memory, the one who slept beside a stranger wearing her husband's smile. She's gone now. In her place, me. The book tour ended last spring. I turned down the talk show circuit, declined the reality show offer. Yep, they tried. Instead, I built something quieter, stronger. I started a foundation, Claim Back, a nonprofit legal resource for women in financial abuse situations. We offer free consultations, partner with law firms, and help them build their exit plans step by step, like I did. So far, we've helped 163 women leave their situations. But I don't call that success, I call it starting over. Sometimes, when I walk by the bookshelf in my home, I catch sight of the framed check from Talia. Sometimes, I still dream of courtrooms, signatures, and Ryan's pale, sweating face as the cuffs clicked closed. But more often now, I dream of the lake, of calm, of silence without fear. One night, I stood at the edge of the dock and reread a passage from my book for an upcoming podcast. It said, "The moment you stop apologizing for surviving is the moment you start living." I closed the book and smiled. The next morning, I got a letter, a simple white envelope, no return address. Inside, a single page. It was from Ryan, 3 years in, still behind bars. It read, "I hope one day you'll forgive me. I still don't understand how we got here." I folded it without reading the rest, walked outside, and tossed it into the fire pit. Watched it burn. No anger, no drama, no closure needed, just a decision. His story ends here. Mine, it's just getting good. I was folding laundry when my husband walked in and dropped the bomb like it was nothing. "I've talked to a lawyer. I want a divorce. Her name is Karen Fields, and she'll be calling you later to explain the process." That was it. No explanation, no emotion, just business. I'd given this man 15 years of my life. I helped him build his small construction company from the ground up. I was the one handling the books when we couldn't afford a real accountant. I was the one staying up late to balance the invoices while he slept like a baby. And now, just like that, I was being dismissed like an employee. He didn't know I already suspected something. He didn't know I had access to more than he thought. And most importantly, he didn't know I wasn't going down without a plan. So yes, I did talk to his lawyer, and then I hired my own. And what came next? Let's just say, he should have never underestimated the woman who helped build his empire. I was folding laundry on a Thursday afternoon. The kids were still at school, and the house was come to calm. Maybe. I remember the exact shirt I was folding, his faded blue flannel he always wore when he worked outside. It smelled like grass and aftershave. Then the front door opened. My husband, Dean, stepped in like he owned the world. Which, technically, he did, at least in his mind. He tossed his keys on the counter and casually leaned against the doorframe like he had something simple to say, like "Dinner smells good" or "I'm gonna mow the lawn." But what he actually said, "I've talked to a lawyer. I want a divorce. Her name is Karen Fields. She'll be in touch with you tomorrow." That was it. I stood there, frozen, holding his damn flannel shirt in my hands like a joke. I looked at him and waited for the punchline. But there wasn't one. His face was blank, his tone was robotic, and I knew then he'd rehearsed this. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't flinch. "It's for the best. I don't think we should keep pretending anymore." Pretending. Was that what the last 15 years were to him? Pretend I didn't cry. Not right then. Instead, something in me switched. I folded the shirt, neatly pressed the corners down, and I said nothing, because something felt off. Dean had never been brave, not like this. He hated confrontation. He was passive-aggressive and cowardly when it came to emotional stuff. This was rehearsed, prepared, coached, and suddenly Karen Fields didn't sound like just a lawyer. It sounded like someone who knew too much about my husband, like someone he'd been talking to for a while, maybe even sleeping with. The lawyer called the next day, like clockwork. Karen Fields called. "Hi Zoe, I'm Dean's attorney. I'd like to walk you through the dissolution paperwork. This will be amicable and efficient. Efficient. What a word. I let her talk, taking notes in silence. I didn't tell her I already had my own lawyer on speed dial. I didn't tell her I had access to every bank account Dean thought I didn't know about. I didn't even tell her that I'd found the Airbnb charges on our credit card months ago under a fake business name he made up. Instead, I thanked her, played nice, and promised to look over everything. That night, while Dean was showering, I checked his phone like I always did when something felt off. He was sloppy, always had been. And this time, jackpot. There were messages, long gushy ones, from Karen. Not Karen Fields, the lawyer. Karen Fields, the woman. And suddenly, everything made sense. She wasn't just representing him, she was with him, helping him plan everything from the inside out. They were trying to screw me over, financially, legally, emotionally, but I wasn't going down like that. I had receipts. Here's what Dean didn't know. While he'd been playing dirty, I'd been documenting everything, every unexplained transaction, every business expense he logged that didn't match his actual schedule, every dinner with clients that didn't exist. For years, I'd been his unofficial bookkeeper. I knew that company inside and out. I had full access to tax records, contractor payments, payroll discrepancies, things that could raise a lot of questions in front of the IRS. But I kept quiet, because I wasn't ready yet. Instead, I took copies of everything. I even created a little USB key labeled vacation photos that held backups of every suspicious transaction he ever made under the business name. I also called my lawyer Jennifer Alston. She was a beast, a real pit bull in heels. "You're going to want to play dumb for now," she said. "Let them make the first move. Then we hit back with everything." I smiled for the first time that week, pretending to break for the next few days. I pretended to be heartbroken. I cried into my cereal. I slept in the guest room. I let Dean think I was falling apart. And the more broken I looked, the more confident he got. Arrogant, even. He started coming home late, dressing nicer, whispering on the phone. He even brought Karen over one afternoon while I was out. But thanks to our Ring camera, I saw everything. They laughed in my kitchen. She drank from my mug. He kissed her like I never existed. And that was the last straw. Not because he kissed her, but because she sat at my table and laughed at me like she'd already won. The calm before the storm that weekend. Dean handed me the official divorce documents. "If you sign by Monday," he said, "we can make this painless." Painless for him, maybe. I took the papers, smiled, told him I'd think about it, and that night, I handed everything, every receipt, every copy, every digital file, to my lawyer. "Let's give him exactly what he asked for," I said. A divorce? Dean thought he was the mastermind. What he didn't know was that I'd spent the last 3 months quietly preparing for something I couldn't even name at the time. I didn't know then that he was planning to leave me. But I knew something was coming. And when your gut tells you to start saving digital receipts and watching your bank accounts like a hawk, you listen. While he played games with his lawyer, girlfriend, I prepared the chessboard. My lawyer, the warrior Jennifer Alston, wasn't just good, she was terrifying. She specialized in high-asset divorces, especially ones involving hidden finances, shady business dealings, and narcissistic husbands. "I've seen this pattern before," she told me. "They always think they're 2 steps ahead, until they realize the quiet ones are watching everything." I gave her everything: emails, Spreadsheets, tax returns, QuickBooks access, scanned checks, phone screenshots. I even gave her the burner phone Dean thought I didn't know about. She smiled like a cat with a canary. "This is going to be fun," she said. Dean's hidden life wasn't so hidden. The more we dug, the uglier it got. He'd funneled company funds into fake expenses, Airbnbs, for client retreats that were really weekend getaways with Karen. Restaurant bills logged as vendor meetings that were romantic dinners for two. One time, he bought her a $4,000 bracelet and wrote it off as a corporate gift. And then there was the worst part. He'd set up a separate business account under a shell company, presumably to move assets so I couldn't touch them. But he made one crucial mistake. He listed his real name on one of the wire transfers. Rookie move. Jennifer's forensic accountant traced the money trail like a bloodhound. And within days, we had a complete map of Dean's betrayal. Not just emotional, but criminal. "If we hand this over to the IRS, he's toast," Jennifer said. "But let's give him a chance to hang himself first." The calm mask. Meanwhile, at home, I played my role like an Oscar-winning actress. I made coffee. I did laundry. I asked questions like, "Should I keep the dining table or would you want it?" Just to make him think I was being mature about the split. Every time he smirked, every time he condescended with a pat on the back or a fake sympathetic tone, I bit my tongue, because I knew what was coming. He even started talking about selling the house quickly and how we should keep it out of court to protect the kids. I smiled, nodded, played dumb, and I waited the mediation trap. The first mediation session was held at Karen's law firm. She walked in wearing a pencil skirt and smugness. Dean sat beside her like a man who'd just won the lottery. "We're offering Zoe 25% of the business assets," Karen said. "And the house, if she agrees to sign the documents today. 20% of a company I helped build from zero. A company that technically only survived its first 3 years because I worked unpaid, managing invoices and doing client follow-ups while raising our twins." My hands clenched under the table, but my face stayed still. Jennifer cleared her throat. "That's very generous," she said with a fake smile. "But Zoe would like to counter." Karen raised her eyebrow. "Oh." Jennifer opened a folder and slid over a packet. "Here's a breakdown of your client's fraudulent activity over the past 2 years. Zoe's willing to go to court with this. We've already contacted an IRS liaison." Dean's face drained of color. Karen picked up the papers and started scanning through them. Her confidence faltered. She looked at Dean. He looked at me. I looked back, calm, silent, just like I had when he first told me about the divorce only. This time, I had all the power. "If we go to court," Jennifer said, "Zoe gets half minimum, plus damages. Plus, the feds take a closer look at those tax filings you swore were clean." Dean opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Karen again. She wasn't smiling anymore. Backpedaling begins 3 days later. Dean called me. "Hey, can we maybe meet for coffee? Just talk, without lawyers." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You wanted to be efficient and painless. Remember, let's keep it that way." Click, he texted after that, apologizing, saying he never wanted it to be this way, that maybe we could still work something out. I didn't respond. Then came Karen's email. Suddenly, they were open to negotiation. Suddenly, I was being offered 50% plus full custody of the kids, plus the house, if I would just sign a non-disclosure agreement. Nice try. Final offer. My terms. I told Jennifer I wanted more, not out of greed but out of justice. I wanted 60% of the business, assets, sole ownership of the house, full custody with supervised visits for Dean, all legal fees covered, no undue. Jennifer delivered the terms with her signature venom. They agreed within 24 hours. He never saw it coming when the final paperwork was signed. Dean avoided eye contact. He looked like a man who'd walked into a ring, expecting a spar, and got a knockout. Punch instead. Karen didn't even show up. I walked out of that law office lighter than I'd felt in years, not just because I was free, but because I had won, on my own terms, quietly, intelligently, completely. And you know what the best part was? A month later, the IRS opened an audit on Dean's company. Guess he forgot to correct all those shady write-offs in time. He tried to blame me, but by then, I was already out of state. New job, new house, new life. End. For the first time in 15 years, I finally slept through the night. Asterisk, it's funny how quiet the world feels when the storm finally passes. After everything, after the fake smiles, the lawyer games, the silent dinners, the courtroom drama, I found myself sitting on the porch of my new home, coffee in hand, just breathing. No more checking Dean's tone for passive aggression. No more calculating every word to avoid a fight. No more walking on eggshells in my own house. I was free, and he was unraveling. Dean's world collapsed slowly. Then, all at once, started with the IRS letter. Jennifer's team didn't need to file anything officially. We'd only mentioned we were preparing to contact the authorities, but apparently, one of the documents Karen had filed during the mediation triggered something in the system. Oops. Dean called me furious. I didn't pick up. He emailed, begged me to fix it or explain it was all a misunderstanding. I let Jennifer handle the response. Ms. Miller is no longer affiliated with your business. Any inquiries should be directed to your tax counsel. Translation: you're on your own, buddy. Then came the next domino. Clients started dropping. Word had gotten around that Dean's company was under audit. And let's just say construction clients in Columbus don't like working with people who attract government attention. Within 2 months, he lost 3 major accounts. Then the credit cards were frozen. His shell company bank account got flagged. Payroll was delayed. And Karen ghosted him. Apparently, she had her own reputation to protect, and Dean wasn't worth burning her legal career over. Meanwhile, I was rebuilt, moved into a quiet rental across town. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The lease had only my name on it, and the furniture was stuff I picked out. No compromise, no fake rustic wood, because Dean likes that style. The twins, Max and Ella, adjusted faster than I expected. They were 11, old enough to understand that something was off, but young enough to bounce back with the right love and support. At first, Dean tried to play fun weekend dad. Trips to the zoo, ice cream, cheap bribery. But the kids weren't dumb. They noticed how he canceled last minute, how he looked distracted even when he was physically present, how he yelled more, joked less, and eventually, they just stopped asking to go. Co-parenting with a narcissist or not. Dean wanted joint custody at first. Then he realized that meant responsibilities. After 2 no-shows at school meetings and 1 forgotten dentist appointment, even he knew it wasn't working. We went back to court. I didn't even have to say much. The judge took 1 look at his missed visit log and declared me primary custodian. He didn't argue. I think by that point, he was too busy trying to keep the IRS out of his personal accounts and begging Karen to take him back. Spoiler alert, she didn't. People talk. Columbus isn't a small town, but the construction industry is tight. Eventually, word got around, not about the affair. That part was old news, but about how he tried to screw me over. And I turned the tables. Other wives messaged me. Some had gone through similar things. Some just wanted to say, good for you. And the cherry on top. A year later, a woman named Tina, whose husband had once hired Dean's crew, asked for a coffee meeting. She worked in HR for a real estate firm and they needed someone to manage contractor payroll and budgets. She offered me the job right on the spot. We need someone sharp. Someone who knows how to spot red flags. Someone who doesn't get pushed around. I smiled so hard it hurt. Who I became. People love to talk about moving on, like it happens overnight. Like you wake up, cut your hair, buy new shoes, and voila, you're healed. It's not like that. It took months of therapy. It took mornings where I didn't want to get out of bed. It took crying in the shower so the kids wouldn't hear. But somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting for Dean to apologize. I stopped replaying the kitchen scene. The moment he announced the divorce, like he was offering me a business deal, stopped feeling small. And I started feeling proud. Proud that I didn't scream. proud that I didn't lose control, proud that I outsmarted the man who thought I was too weak to stand alone, because in the end, I didn't just survive, I thrived. And Dean, last I heard, he sold what was left of the business to cover legal fees. He moved into a rental in a not part of town, the kind of place where your neighbors argue on the lawn and the plumbing always smells like mildew. He reached out to the kids a few times. They didn't respond. He emailed me once, on my birthday, "Hope you're doing well." I didn't reply, not out of pettiness, but because I was doing great, and he didn't deserve to know that the real revenge people think revenge is loud, that it's shouting, slashing tires, public takedowns. But the best kind, it's quiet, it's living better, it's knowing you never had to stoop to their level. It's walking away with your head high while they watch everything fall apart behind you. I need an apology from Dean. He gave me the best gift he could have without even realizing. It's freedom. And I used it to build a life so solid, not even a man like him could shake it. Asterisk. They say rock bottom teaches you lessons that mountaintops never will. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad. Dean left me. Not because the pain was easy, not because the betrayal didn't sting, but because that moment, the moment he stood in our kitchen and casually tossed me aside, was the moment I woke up. For years, I'd been existing, not living. I was Dean's wife, the kids' mom, the one who keeps the house running. I was useful, convenient, quiet, but not seen, not really. The real me had been sleeping. I look back now and realize how much I shrank myself to make Dean feel bigger. I deferred to him on everything: money, business, decisions, even what movie to watch on Friday nights. Not because I didn't have opinions, but because I thought it kept the peace. But peace that costs your voice isn't peace. It's silent suffering. So when I started rebuilding, I didn't just redecorate my house. I rebuilt me. I took a solo weekend trip to Asheville just because I'd always wanted to see the mountains. I signed up for pottery classes even though I was terrible at it. I started wearing red lipstick again. I didn't do any of it for a man. I did it because I wanted to remember what it felt like to take up space. The kids were my anchor. Max and Ella are my heart. At first, I worried the divorce would break something in them. But kids are resilient in ways adults forget. One night, few months after the split, Max crawled into my bed and said, "I like this house better. You smile more here." It nearly broke me. Not from sadness, but from relief, because in all my fear about raising them alone, I forgot something crucial. They weren't losing a home. They were gaining a happier mother. We cooked together now. Fridays, our movie and pancake night on the couch. They know they can ask me anything and that I'll always answer honestly, even if the answer is, "I don't know yet, but I'm figuring it out." One unexpected conversation about a year after everything settled. I ran into Karen at a grocery store. She didn't see me at first. She was in yoga pants and clearly avoiding eye contact with the world. I could have walked the other way. I could have thrown shade, made a scene, humiliated her, but I didn't. I walked right past her, basket in hand, head high. And when she finally looked up, our eyes met. She flinched. I didn't, because you know what power feels like. It feels like not needing revenge anymore. It feels like walking away stronger, sharper, freer. And Dean, still Dean, he tried dating again. The kids told me about a woman named Rachel he brought around for a few weeks. She didn't last long. Apparently, Dean still thinks women exist to support him, not stand beside him. Good luck with that. The last time we spoke briefly, at a school event, he looked tired, smaller, like the world had started folding in on him. He said, "You look good. You seem happy." I smiled. "I am. And I meant it." Dear women who are where I was, if you're reading this, if you're watching from your phone late at night while your partner sleeps beside you, and you're wondering if you're crazy, if you're really being mistreated, if you're worth more than how he treats you, me say it clearly: you are not crazy. You are not overreacting, and you deserve more than scraps. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to be angry and soft and powerful and scared all at once. You are allowed to outgrow the life you settled for. And if you ever find yourself staring at divorce papers across a long wooden table, just remember, you don't have to fall apart to rebuild. You can take your time. You can gather your proof. You can move with strategy, not desperation. And when the dust settles, you can rise higher than they ever thought you could. The ending I never expected. People think the end of a marriage is a failure, but sometimes it's the first real success you've had in years. I didn't lose a husband, I lost dead weight. I didn't lose a home, I gained peace. I didn't lose love, I found myself, and I would go through every painful moment again if it meant ending up here, in my own home, with my own joy, waking up every day knowing he left me thinking I'd break, and all I did was build something better.
She told me I was too old for this company, that my experience didn't matter anymore. And just like that, after 27 years, I was fired. No warning, no thank you, just a pink slip, and a smug smile from a 28-year-old with a shiny MBA, and 0 people skills. But here's the thing, I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I shook her hand, smiled politely, and walked out. 3 months later, I walked back in, not as an employee, as her new boss. Let me tell you exactly how that happened. I still remember that Thursday morning like it was yesterday. I'd just poured myself a cup of coffee in the break room, the cheap kind that tastes like burnt cardboard, when Marissa walked in with her heels clicking like gunshots. She didn't even look at me, just said, "Ray, can you come to HR for a minute?" Now listen, I'm not stupid. I'd been working at Dunhill Tech for 27 years. That HR meeting tone, I knew what it meant. Still, I followed her, mug in hand, because I'm a professional, or at least I was. We sat down, and there was some HR guy, probably fresh out of college, sweating through his shirt. Marissa crossed her legs, smiled like this wasn't a firing, but some casual coffee chat. "Ray," she said, "we're restructuring, and unfortunately, some roles have become redundant." I nodded. Redundant. That's a fancy word for you're too old and we want you gone, huh? She blinked, surprised I said it out loud. But let's not kid ourselves. Everyone was thinking it. I was 61. Most of the team was under 35. I trained half of them, including Marissa, by the way. She was my intern 10 years ago. Now she was VP. I want you to know this has nothing to do with your performance, she said. Of course not, I smiled. Just my birth year. I didn't make a scene. I signed the paperwork, packed up my office in a cardboard box, and walked out the same way I walked in 27 years ago, quietly but inside. Oh, I was boiling. I got home, sat on the porch with my wife, and told her everything. She didn't say much, just handed me a beer and said, "Well, what now?" That night I couldn't sleep. Not out of sadness, but from something else. A fire. Not the angry throw things kind. The calm, focused, cold kind. The kind that plans. Because here's the thing Marissa didn't know. While I'd been working at Dunhill, I wasn't just answering emails and mentoring interns. I'd been quietly building something. Certifications, industry connections, even an executive leadership certificate I took online at night. No one ever asked. I never told. I didn't just want a new job. I wanted her job, and I knew exactly how to get it. First thing I did that Friday morning, I shaved, not because I needed to, but because I needed to feel like myself again, not some discarded office relic. I threw on a clean shirt, sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop, and opened my contacts list. I wasn't calling recruiters. I was calling friends, old colleagues, clients, vendors, people who still remembered me, not the age on my resume. By noon, I had 5 coffee meetings lined up, 2 Zoom calls, 1 dinner with a guy who once told me, "If you ever leave Dunhill, call me first." And I did. Over the next few weeks, I kept it quiet. I didn't rant on LinkedIn or write angry blog posts about ageism. I didn't need to. I had a plan, and it was working. What most people forget is that revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, the best revenge is sitting across from someone who thought they buried you and smiling while you sign the paperwork that proves otherwise. By the 3rd week, I was consulting. By the 5th, I was leading a digital transformation project for a startup that was eating companies like Dunhill alive. And by the end of month 2, I had an offer. A big one, but I turned it down because something better was coming. Here's where it gets good. One of my old clients, huge defense contractor, called me up and said, "Ray, we're acquiring a mid-sized tech firm. They've got decent products but no leadership. You interested in a turnaround role?" I asked for the name of the company. He said, "Dunhill Tech." I didn't even blink. I said, "When do we start?" They brought me in as an interim consultant at first, just to observe, give a report on structure, workflow, leadership quality, or lack thereof. I was basically sent in to evaluate the very people who thought I was too old to be useful. The irony. I walked in the front doors 3 months after they fired me, not as an employee, but as the guy who could decide who stayed and who didn't. Marissa saw me and turned ghost white. "Ray?" she asked, frozen in the hallway. I smiled. "Afternoon. I'm here to help assess the team. Heard there's been some restructuring." She stuttered something about not being informed. I shrugged. "That's above your pay grade now, I guess." That week was delicious. I sat in on meetings where people tried to explain things I had created. They stumbled over acronyms, tried to dress up poor decisions with buzzwords, and pretended to lead while chaos brewed beneath. And the best part, Marissa cracked. She knew I was evaluating her. She knew the company had a choice to make, and I was the one holding the pen. Spent the first 2 weeks back at Dunhill, doing exactly what they paid me for, observing on the surface everything looked clean. New branding, polished reports, nice PowerPoint decks with bold mission statements and hollow vision goals. But under the hood, it was a circus. Teams were misaligned. Deadlines were being missed. The product roadmap was a joke. Junior developers were running meetings while directors scrolled through their phones, and leadership. That was the real disaster. I sat through one leadership meeting where Marissa spent 20 minutes talking about synergy and digital alignment, while completely ignoring a massive drop in client retention. She was all show, no substance. Just like the first time I trained her, years ago. Except now, the stakes were higher. And this time, I was taking notes after 2 weeks. I submitted a comprehensive report to the board of the parent company, the one that had just acquired Dunhill. It was 37 pages long. Included charts, names, evidence. At the end of the report was a simple recommendation. For Dunhill to survive this transition, immediate executive restructuring is required. Leadership should reflect industry experience, crisis navigation, skills and strategic clarity, none of which are currently present in the VP of Operations role. I didn't name Marissa directly. I didn't have to. The next day, I was invited to a meeting with the board. The tone was clear. They were impressed. They wanted me to stay, not as a consultant, but as the new chief operations officer. I didn't say yes right away. I waited. I let it breathe. Then I said, I'll accept under one condition. I picked my own team, from scratch. They agreed. No questions asked. 2 days later, Marissa was called in and politely asked to step down in light of the company's new direction. I wasn't in the room. I didn't need to be, but she saw me later in the hallway and said, "You planned this." And I said, "No, you planned this. You just didn't know it was for me." She didn't respond, just walked away, heels slower than before. The next few weeks were surreal. I moved into the office that used to be hers. I rehired 2 of the best engineers she'd let go. I replaced 3 department heads with people who actually knew what they were doing. And I watched the company slowly, painfully stabilized. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it, because every time I walked past that empty office where she used to sit, I remembered what she said when she fired me. "We're looking for fresh perspectives." And I'd smile, because nothing is fresher than a 61-year-old man rebuilding a company from the ruins you left behind. Some people think revenge is about getting even, about making someone hurt the way they hurt you. But standing there in my new office, looking out at the team I rebuilt, the systems I cleaned up, the company I helped rescue, I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This was justice, and the best part, I didn't have to scream, didn't have to threaten anyone, didn't burn a single bridge. I just showed up, quietly, and did the one thing nobody expected me to do. I won. A week after I officially became coup, I got an email, subject line, lunch. It was from Marissa. I'll admit, I hovered over the delete button, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a little restaurant 2 blocks from the office, the same one we used to go to as co-workers, back when she was still just the intern who talks too fast. She looked different, not worse, just heavier somehow, like the weight of the fall hadn't fully left her shoulders. "I owe you an apology," she said as soon as we sat down. I said nothing, just waited. She exhaled. I thought I had to prove myself, that being young and ambitious meant pushing people out of the way. "I didn't see what you were really doing, what you were holding together all those years." I nodded. That's the thing about support beams. People only notice them when the ceiling collapses. She laughed, a short, bitter kind of laugh. "I didn't mean to make it personal," she added. "But it was," I said. "You didn't fire a title. You fired a man, one who built half the things you were managing." She looked down at her drink. "I guess I deserved what happened." That was the part where I was supposed to gloat, say something slick, something cold, but I didn't. I said, "Maybe, but you're not the only one who learned something." She looked up. I let people think I was done, that I'd peaked. I stopped raising my hand, stopped dreaming bigger. "You just reminded me what I'm still capable of." She smiled, a little sad. "You planning to stay there forever?" she asked. I shrugged, long enough to make sure the next Marissa knows what respect looks like. Months passed. The company recovered. I traveled, spoke at conferences, wrote a few articles, nothing flashy, just advice, lessons, things I wish someone had told me when I was 40. You know what was wild? I started getting calls from execs, HR leads, startups, asking me to mentor, to consult, to teach. Turns out, experience does matter. You just have to remind people sometimes. One Friday afternoon, I was packing up to leave early, rare treat for myself, when a junior employee knocked on my door. She said, "Hey, Mr. Dalton, I just wanted to say, you're the reason I stayed. You actually listen, and you care, so thanks." She turned to leave, and I smiled. "Call me Ray," I said. "I'm just another old guy trying to help." But inside, I felt 10 feet tall. Because in the end, the real win wasn't firing back. It was proving to her, to the company, and honestly, to myself, that I still had it, and that maybe, just maybe, I was never too old. They were just too blind to see me.